uh, viewing from today. Decided to sort of set us up like this so that we could so I could write down the questions. Also, kind of make it easier for people who are watching the live to see the and see the question. Keep track of both. Uh, able to hear me? If there's any sound issues or anything like that. Set. And be copying the questions from um, in split view. Basically, I'll be copying the questions from here and putting them in over there. That makes sense. I also turned off my fan, so hopefully that also makes it easier to hear. Uh, but okay, so welcome everybody. Glad you can make it. The whole purpose of this is answer questions, get you guys up to speed, also to check in on things and kind of let you know where my head's at since we've kind of reached this milestone of the campaign. Um, it's been going on now since mid October, so we're about October, November, December, January, February, March, 5 months into the campaign. So, a good point in time to answer any questions you guys may have, but also to reflect on like where we are in the campaign, on any other characters that you may want to be creating, as we continue forward and that level minimum continues to rise and um, the kinds of adventures you guys go on starts to shift and change. Good time to reflect. So the first question was asked by Tanya, which I did answer offline, so she didn't have to wait for this to hear. But Prestige XP, what is it and how is it used? For those who aren't aware, finding out for the first time, if your character is too high for that quest, you can lower them to the appropriate level so that they can obtain prestige experience. And there's a whole document we have in the primer for that. The training weights that explains how you can earn extra features and abilities that allow you to utilize those prestige experience. Though it will take you probably some time until we continue getting higher levels for you to get enough prestige experience for it to really, really start to make a dent. But that's what it is. Question number 2 is how could you do this to Tails from Martin? Now, he's referring to the death of Tails because, for those who are not aware, Cloudfield was created through our game of Street Magic, which basically allowed us to create this city and have some like events happen, things played out, and everybody who played got a chance to put their kind of mix on things and create events, even creating entire focus points uh, of the city. So it was a pretty cool cool thing, and I really wanted to make sure that as many of the events that occurred in game transferred over into the actual lore of the world, and that was one of the events that happened. Tails sacrificing themselves, so that's that's what that was. So I had to honor the wishes of the players. I didn't choose that. um, Next up is from Martin. What is your favorite Yanimal so far? Um, I find them so interesting because JB does uh very effectively like play them subtly differently, um, depending on their going. I think you may have chosen it. Yeah, wait, you're the one who did this to us, Martin. What are you talking about? um, but yeah, I like all the animals. My favorite is probably the flying snake. Just because I imagine Jan is like, he's already small, becoming like this very tiny little critter that's like flitting around and like probably doesn't have any business um to be there. So yeah, that was that one. I think that one. Ryan asks, in a world that you had to choose either Levin's average dice rolls, Mark's ability to roll the same terrible roll twice, or uh, as my real life saving throw, why would I choose to crit Martin instead? Um, I never choose to crit Martin. The dice choose for it to happen, and even then, never when I want it to happen. It just happens. But I probably would choose Mark's insane ability to roll the same terrible roll twice. I never used to like, not that I ever believe, but like I never really was a true believer in luck until I started doing this because um man, you really see some people really do have terrible luck. It's insane. Um but yeah, Mark asks, where is Mud? Mud lives in all of our hearts. Um it's like Whoville. It's like it lives on a snowflake. Uh that's where Mud is. I also ask, what is my favorite soup? Um, I'm a fan, very classic of. Wait, your sound's not working. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me hear me because those dice gods, then you, then a dare for me. Okay, you're good now. Okay, cool. Um, Let me actually raise my. I'm a fan of a classic chicken noodle soup. It's just, it's good. We usually do like a Lipton soup with like an egg in it in our house. I'm also a fan of I'm a fan of stews as well, like any kind of meat stew, potato stew, the kind of thing you just throw things in there and you're like, okay, cool, let's just let them all get cooked through and hope it tastes good. I'm a real big fan of those. Oh, you didn't know I started seeing this the first part. Oh, sorry. Um, Josh asks, how do I make my baby sleep? Which I know wasn't a question. But I do think it takes a sort of militance and adherence to a schedule into absurdity. I used to get so mad when my mother would like come in and be like, "Hey, come on, let's come see the baby." I'm like, "No, no one's seeing the baby. It's She is sleeping from now till now. If she sleeps from now to now, and I wake her up at this time, then she will sleep by 8 o'clock, and then she'll sleep almost the whole night. She'll sleep till 6 a.m. That's incredible." Like, um, but that to me is the best. Man, it's so crazy how time works. But I remember so many nights just standing by her bed. She would cry. I'd pick her up. And then when she would go to sleep, I'd put her back down. She would cry, I'd pick her up. And then when she'd fall asleep, I'd put her back down. And then over and over again until I went insane. Uh, he also asks, is there a list of NPCs for the verse? Just their basic faction associations, party relations, etc. I'm conscious they're all strangers to me due to my absence. The also, hey Nacho, I was just talking about you. That's crazy. The there is a list, not for a list of NPCs for the verse. However, that is one of the things I'm working on with the World Anvil. Basically, I want it to be a sort of page people can go to. Like if somebody says like, "Oh, it's a mission for this person," they can go to that page. They can look at them. They can see like where they're at, what their neighborhood's like, and things like that. Or also like a place where like you guys could write your own comments and things too, and be like, "Hey, actually we just did a mission for this guy and he betrayed us, like this guy's a betrayer," like um anything like that, so that's what my intention with like the World Anvil stuff is to continue putting lore, but mainly like places and people, locations, the factions and things like that. Maybe like have like a um yeah, a place that all that is searchable. um yeah, that's the plan. But right now there isn't any list specifically except for my like insane folder in my Obsidian file there. Um Mark asks, did you make up Throry's name on the spot or was it already decided? Throry's name was not already decided. Uh it wasn't made up on the spot, but it was like a good 15 minutes before where I was like, okay, I'm certain that I'm gonna need this name now. What is the name? But I had already decided on Throry though. Um, it was actually a plot line that I've had honestly for like 4 years now at this point. Um, it's changed and morphed over time. It didn't quite fit the last campaign, but the idea of like a monarch, or I kind of, if it was like a traditional campaign, they probably would have been a little bit older, maybe like a Princess Jasmine type who like runs away from the castle and is like, I want to be my own adventure. Vivi comes to mind from One Piece if you're familiar with her. She's a princess who goes on adventures with the gang. So a little mild spoilers for One Piece. Sorry. It's been 20 years, but so that aspect I was already kind of committed to, of like, okay, I want this to appear. Um, but yeah, that's that's how that works. Next question was Vlorg actually a varsity athlete, and if so, in what sport? Vlorg actually was pretty good at rugby, but that was that was years ago. So, well, now you can't watch it. Ella. You thought we were Geralt and Siri? Welcome, Ryan. Welcome. Um, I mean, that's only after like 250 episodes, so you'll forget by that. Um, Geralt and Siri. That's interesting. That's an interesting to know that that's how you viewed it. Um, Knockhead asks, are we able to use content from the updated Dark Matter equipment? If you guys didn't see the announcement, I didn't even realize that was released on the Patreon until he put that there. And I was like, wait a second, what? I was been looking for this. Um, but yeah, I do. They do look like they are continuing to update their stuff. And honestly, I do like plan to continue to, as they update the rest of their Mage Hand Press materials and classes, to continue allowing those. I know that like Wizards of the Coast is working on a Faerun thing right now. That's probably gonna be like the next thing they release. I don't think I'm gonna include any more Wizards of the Coast material. I think, like as I mentioned at the start of the campaign, that maybe like at a case by case basis, but not like in a broad sense. But I think, like I mentioned at the start of the campaign, I was very reluctant to start 5e 2024 just due to the fact that like I'm tired of Wizards of the Coast and their business choices. Things like their video games and stuff. And but anywho, Mage Hand Press does a lot of great work. They have tons and tons of material, and I feel a lot more confident. Just wait for Humblewood 2024, your space chicken. Oh man. But yeah, I would much rather continue to support them, and do that than whatever the heck Wizards of the Coast is gonna push out next. Um, it's to my surprise, this system is extremely stable, which is like, I mean, it's not too much of a surprise considering like it's meant to be a revision of a game that was already kind of stable. But considering we haven't needed to make any like homebrew changes or additions other than like kind of the ones that are more narrative focused or Ranger, um, which like if you don't view the Ranger as, unfortunately, the narrative idea we have of a Ranger, but as a martial effective like damage dealing class, it still is like one of the best ones. Like, and so if that's what you want mechanically, then like that's a good class. That's a good class, but it just doesn't have any of the narrative flavor. But in my opinion, them taking away all of the narrative flavor and just putting mechanics into all the classes makes things a lot more balanced across all of the various classes and levels. So it makes adding these other things to me. I am a lot more willing to add. Um, I think it's hilarious that Ranger is its own argument. Yeah, I know. That's like a whole separate like addendum, but it makes it easier for me to tweak things as well, and like to make, or to not tweak things but add little things like the training feats and the abilities and things like that. It will always bother me if the Ranger isn't the best archer. Yeah, I know. But that's I think we'll continue using the updated Dark Matter stuff as they come out, seeing how things go. But um yeah, let's see. uh Florian asks, how do you come up with these inspirations? And maybe we already talked about this one, but what made you choose the dark matter sci-fi setting for this campaign? Did you envision other styles, steampunk, post-apocalypse, classic fantasy, etc., etc.? Um, so, so okay, so uh, the inspiration questions. Um, I have a huge list of questionnaires of like getting to know people thing. You like like things you ask on a date or something like that. I have a game that's like here's questions you need to use to like get to know each other and things like that. But I also it's also one of those things that at first when I first started doing this, I would just ask the players to tell me things. And that didn't really work too well because I realized the players didn't know what kinds of things I was talking about. And I think it's because, although I know that people are made up of more than just a collection of facts and things like that, I do think that there are certain bits of information that can give you insight into a character and their way of thinking. And so I think a lot about those things, like outside of game, of like, I wonder what this character thinks about this, or what's their thoughts on this, or how they feel about this. So a lot of times I just end up thinking about these questions. Or like I mentioned, sometimes I'll just be walking around thinking about stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is a good question to ask everybody. Um, so that's typically how I think I do that. I'll separate this into a separate question. Um, in terms of the sci-fi setting, so there's genre and there's setting. I would not consider this a sci-fi genre. I would still consider this dark fantasy with sci-fi elements, because at least in terms of genre. Obviously, in terms of setting, this is definitely a sci-fi, futuristic, uh, almost post-humanist setting. But in terms of genre and tone, sci-fi feels very differently. This isn't Planet of the Apes. Um, this is more Star Wars, you know. Uh, and in that sense, it's a little bit it's a little bit more about what I thought I would need from the campaign in that sense. I kind of like the Outer Worlds a lot. Um, but honestly, I think the thing that gave me the biggest inspiration was uh, a music video. I think I posted it before. Um, I'm not sure if it's fair use or not. Hold on, let me see if I find it. So I'm pretty sure that us just watching a few seconds of this counts as fair use and is totally chill. So she'll be fine. Um, but this is a music video from the Stupendium that is um, based on the Outer Worlds. It's called the Outer Worlds song. Um, some of you may have heard it, but this is the hook. That line, pretty much right there, wrote the whole campaign for me. Um, if you want to watch the rest of that video, uh, the fine print, the Outer World song. But that line there was pretty significant for me because it kind of reminded me at the time where we were in the campaign of there are elements of the first campaign that I wanted to explore that like we just didn't get a chance just because that's how things work. So there were things I wanted to grab and move around, but there's also like mechanical aspects that bother me way more than they bother anyone else to an unreasonable extent. And I know that it doesn't matter, but space travel fixes a lot of the logistical issues that bother me with the premise of our game, which I know that like it's not supposed to, but it does bug me sometimes that like um your characters have like gone and traveled to like one place and then like you teleport to another place. At least with space travel, we have like we can take like oh dark matter jumped or we like took a ship from this place to this place, and that solves a lot of that issues for me. But it would bother me in the last game before we had like widespread teleportation, when it was like, how long is this journey? Weeks. Okay, cool. But tomorrow we're also gonna be on another quest. That also was a significant factor. So kind of solving those things was one of the aspects for me of like, okay, I want to solve these. Um, but I never really. I feel like some of our campaign last time blurred the line between modern and steampunk, um, and also post-apocalyptic in a way, but maybe not in the Fallout sense. Classic fantasy, I'm never really too interested in. The last campaign I would consider more of a dark political fantasy. So yeah, that's that's that question. Go back to the chill music again. Next question. Um, when, if you tell your friends about our chaotic world, what do they make of it? How do you describe us? Can't be three. We're all cows. um, I do talk to some of my friends about like the campaign. For the ones who don't really play D&D, they don't really understand it. Like the other night, I told one of my friends, I was like, hey, um, one of my NPCs cut off one of my players' heads tonight, and they were like, what the hell? And I was like, yeah, but then they put it back on, so it was okay. And they were like, wow, that sounds like it was a crazy night. And I was like, yeah, it was a crazy night. One of my other friends who I played D&D for a long time with, I'll talk about the campaign sometime. So like I told him the other day, I was like, oh, we had the fight with the Tarask. And he was like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, we had a fight with the Tarask, like in the old campaign. And he was like, you mean your party? died to the Tarask. And I was like, no, no, no. They succeeded in sealing it away. And he was like, oh, okay, good, good. I thought you were telling me you TPK'd your party or something. And I was like, no, 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 I wouldn't do that. um, but yeah, they usually find it pretty funny. But what has been the biggest surprise? What have been my biggest surprises of the campaign so far? Um, hmm, it's a good question. I think my biggest surprise has been, I think mainly in the kind of people you all have allied yourselves with already. You know, I don't necessarily have like, oh, these guys are good, these guys are bad, or whatever. I think, you know, most of the factions and corporations are like, it's pretty clear that like they mostly all have their own interests at heart. But I think that's been the most surprising to me, which areas you guys have been willing to like dive into and be like, oh, these guys are okay, these guys aren't. Especially in the sense of, that's one aspect that sci-fi does often explore, which is like morality, ethics, and when you have different planets and different cultures who have different histories and beliefs, you know, completely different creatures in different senses, then it's like it kind of starts to become like hard to answer a question, which is why like I find it fascinating, like that Mr. T is often like um, justice, because it is one of those things that's like, it's funny because a friend had asked me before too, like, what does that even mean, justice? And I was like, don't. Don't even play with me. You know exactly what justice means. You know what justice is when you see it. And I was like, I can explain it to you, but it's gonna be like a very long-winded explanation. Um, but yeah, it's funny. Uh, Becky asks, although last two were from Jan, from JB. Uh, Not personally. Hey Tanya, justice. um, yeah, not on purpose. Anyways, has been all these alignments, but that's also been like the fun part too. Is that like I feel like it is. There are so many different groups that that was one thing I wanted to make sure of. Like, okay, there are so many groups that it's like, one, you can't like not get into somebody's territory or range, or like, or in somebody's, you know, area, but also that like it's not as like clear cut. You know, different factions, different groups have different things they might be able to offer you and benefit with you with, um, and so you guys may decide to align with some of them just for the benefits, which plenty of people do, and not necessarily because of their morals. So that's one of the things that I wanted to see. Uh, yeah, how'd it go? What have we achieved so far that you're proudest of? Um, Saving little Ricky. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, hmm. I think I'm most proudest of you guys focusing these dungeons and clearing them and not leaving a bunch of dungeons open. That's been I'm pretty proud of that. Um, but I think the amount of threads you guys have actually like latched onto and actually continued to like follow through on, and um, you know, it's one thing to be like, oh yeah, we saw this person one time, it was cool. Uh, he wants to see at what price do we sell out. um, yeah, you know, everyone's got its price. Being completionist, yeah. Uh, but yeah, I think it's that. Also, I think in a lot of, also too, I think I've been most proudest in everyone's involvement in like in their parts of the lore and developing like you know, like as we've gone through the campaign and figuring out more stuff about the world and your character's place in it, developing those aspects of the lore, and seeing how it shapes everything else. Even just things like naming on the maps and stuff like that. Like those add such flavor. Like now, like when people go to the Eerie Woods, uh, and the Lake of Illusions, like that's what it is. It's the Eerie Woods. Of course it is. So I think I've been most proud of that, and everyone's creative, like um, the flexing of everyone's creative muscles, because it's fun to see. You know, that's kind of what I want everyone to kind of build out. 'Cause it is like a skill in a way, and it's something like you definitely everybody can tap into. Like I said before, I think all humans are creative to some aspect. JB asks, you mentioned during one of the map making demonstrations that the new rules have simplified your prep. Could you talk more about that here? How does incorporating the new DM material fit into that? So like I said, like the system's a lot more stable. There's a lot more predictability. It's also more balanced with the healing. So um, I view mechanics and things a lot like video games, and balance in that sense. A lot of times, the way that I figured out like how the mechanics and things worked in the monster manual and got a sense for it, was literally through simulations. I would uh, pick monsters and I'd have them fight in my head, or I'd have them fight my player's stats, or I would make up scenarios, and I would just do this like over and over and over and over and over again. Rumination is a real good tool, but could be a real big enemy. But I would basically like do these simulations over and over and over again, and especially as you start to get to higher levels, past 5, past 6, base 5e is a lot more unpredictable, especially with all the additions that WotC added throughout all of the games. So I basically had to account for my own balance changes, as well as what WotC was doing and adding into the game, as well as the inherent imbalances and flaws that were there in 14. Um, Things like different classes having such dips and dives in their balance and their utility. Because part of my prep is also trying to ensure that like everybody at least has some influence or some ability to interact or do something. Um, of course, it's a little more difficult if like one class is built like specifically for combat, and like unit, for example, like if he was to go on a high intrigue mission of like we're going to a party to like uh you know sneak into this room. Units probably, it's gonna be hard for me to find something for a unit to be good at in that place. um but in the same sense, there's characters who are built primarily for social encounters and things like that. But some of the classes in 14 were like unbalanced even when it came to combat, because they were given ribbon abilities instead. And it was seen as like, well, you're not good at this thing, but you're good at that thing. And since I do run a heavier leaning combat game, I think, than what might be more popular at this time, I think looking through SPG, there are a lot more like rules light or combat light games. Um, and so I, for the type of experience that I want, I also need to make sure that like I'm not gonna like automatically kill you guys. While I may put you guys in scenarios in which I think like, hey, worst case scenario, they have a chance to get away. I know that for sure they'll probably survive. Unit's great at partying, yeah. um, but in 2024, all the classes are a lot more balanced, and mainly in their combat abilities. Because of that, it makes it a lot more predictable for me, the simulation in my head, which makes balancing a lot more easy, which makes encounter building easier, which means that I can include more aspects into the encounter and spend more time like doing things that I want to do more creatively than just trying to figure out, am I accidentally killing the whole party here or not? Because the balance between that and like my chicken meter needs tuning. Listen, that chicken encounter, that just rolled really good. That wasn't even the main bad guys of the fight. uh, but because of that, especially with 2014, it's 2014 is extremely hard to challenge the party once they get to a certain power level, regardless of how many items they may have. So at that point, the amount of hoops you have to kind of jump in through to go through to make things work is more difficult. So with 2024, because it's a lot more balanced, the monsters at the base just inherently are deadlier. They have they're also just more balanced against the way the party's levels are. It just makes it easier for me. So I don't have to spend as much brain power on that aspect. So yeah. And the DM material, I found that chicken encounter was 2 and he was coming after you. That chicken encounter. Uh, that's also one of those things too, where it's like I say all the time, where it's like the party composition can change so many things so greatly. Where it's like if one other character was there and it wasn't there, or there was a different party member, like it just so many different things could have gone differently. Um, Same thing I was telling Martin about that investigation quest the other day. Like we said at the end of that quest, where like Jan probably would have like trivialized most of this quest by like turning into a spider and climbing in through the window, and that would have been like the whole quest. But party composition sometimes comes into play. But in terms of the DM material, um, I haven't seen anything updating from their side. I've been enjoying everyone who's been trying the DM material in their classes because I did try to make them balance for the 2024 material. Um, but overall, I find the balance is actually strikes surprisingly well. Like mathematically, blasters do um, just around as much damage as like regular crossbows would. If anything, like a crossbow. So now we know we can't do investigation without a druid. That's the clue we needed, guys. Yeah. Um. But like yeah, like but the crossbow technically you could put like poison on the crossbow. You can do put bombs and things on it or whatever. Um, which you couldn't do with a blaster. So yeah, the DM material hasn't been too difficult incorporating into the game. Um, the main thing has just been like slowly adapting the ship battle, which I think now we're finally at a good place where like most everyone's got a good sense of it. Because now we can start to do, like I mentioned before, like more complicated battles. Like the last one that we did was pretty like had me like at the edge of my seat, even though you guys crushed it, which I always find that you guys so far have been doing, which is funny because each time that like you guys have almost been like, oh my god, this is crazy, and I'm like, wow, but you guys killed like almost everyone round one. That was insane. Even that one time when you guys had like only like 4 people on the ship, I think you guys still did really well. But yeah, that's been fun. I really like the ship stuff because I find that like as much as even like returning to it when we did the one shot the other day, like as much as I love having like the pack tactics, like it's like I find it to be like a little clunky. I don't know, Ricardo. Our last one, we left without an engineer. Yeah, okay, so yeah, that one was crazy. You guys didn't have an engineer, but still, who filled in for it? I forgot who it was. Um, they did pretty good, but yeah, having an engineer is important. Um, I say here, what have you done that's made you absolutely? Oh, and then this meme face. I see. Let me copy. Okay, it's not coming through. But the face is a face palm, so I'll just put that here. Uh, what have we done that's made you absolutely face palm? Um, yeah, there's always something, you know. uh, oh, Fina was the replacement engineer. Jan left her the manual just in case. Yeah, thank God for Jan. So, what have you done that's absolutely made you face palm? I don't think there's been any. Okay, well, so I think when you guys came into uh Novaterra, um I think that was the one where I was like um I think like that was the one where I think you guys realized where we were like, okay, just because they don't have space flight doesn't mean they're not a threat. Like they still got guns and things, and that was the one where I was like, wait, did you guys forget that they could have guns? Oh god. That was one time where I was like, yeah, that was funny. but I think our first very eye-opening. Yeah, never underestimate a big stick. Uh, JB asks, is it bad for the progression of the story that we leave older quests on the books for so long? Uh, it does affect the story, but I don't think it's necessarily like bad for the story, unless it's something that you know is like, okay, this is like clearly something with my backstory, and I'm just not doing this. Like, then it's like, okay, all right, you're just like delaying, which is like, okay, fine. Um, I wouldn't necessarily say it's bad, but things do happen in the world. I don't try to update the things in that sense too often. Every couple of months, like when we do these level up changes, because then I feel like, all right, it's been a few months. This quest has been here. It's fair game. Um, Also check the room when you barge into jail to break someone out. Yes, yes, that's good too. But when I do these changes and I do update the quest log and I remove things, I do consider like those events have canonically happened in that sense. Maybe someone else, another group of spacers, comes by and they are able to complete this quest, but maybe they're not, and maybe that affects and changes the world. I wouldn't say it's bad, not unless like if it's something you care about, then you know prioritize it. But if it's not, then it's okay. Let's see. Dana asks, what action or lack of action have we done so far that's been the most shocking, disappointing? Opposite spectrum of Becky's awesome question above. Um, Shocking or disappointing? Hmm. I feel like there's things that are shocking in like little moments of things where it's like, oh, like you're following through with like that backstory, or you're like, oh, you're going through you're going through like with this decision. It's like, oh, I think those surprise me more. Or when like I think hmm. I think the only times I'm disappointed is when I figure out that like there's something that you guys like aren't interested in. Not in the sense of like, oh, I'm disappointed, but in the sense of like, oh, damn. Okay, so they're not interested in like in following this up. Okay, cool. Like I think those are the only times where I'm like disappointed. But um I think that's it. I don't think there's anything so far that's been like, you guys have been really, really good about like trying to be active in the campaign in the sense of like taking part like with the meeting and like trying to make a decision with the scales and stuff like that, trying to prioritize those quests, and especially like with Cloudfield, like that was like a a time sensitive thing. You guys like knocked it out in like 2 days. Mud was going to be funny on the whaler mission, saving a mass murder. Oh yeah, saving a whaler. Oh man. But I think that's it. Uh maybe maybe a lack of action on in the love department. We've got to get more love interests so that our characters can have an episode spot on in General Hospital. We got to figure out who's the evil twin of the other one. We'll get it. Don't worry, guys. JB asks, what has been an interesting off-purpose use of a magic item that you've seen? Um, I don't know if there's an off-purpose use. But hmm, I think there's sometimes where I'm like, oh wow, this is more useful than I thought it was gonna be. I think that's like the most I get of like, huh. Like sometimes we're like sometimes like players, it happens all the time where like players pull out an item and I'm like, well, what is this supposed to do? And then once I read it, I'm like, oh wow, this is actually useful, or like this is actually the exact thing you guys needed for this moment. I think I'm more surprised in those times, but I don't think there's a specific magic item just yet that's been so crazy or so game defining yet. Um, mm, yeah, I think that's it. His next question is, what inspired the development of mentoring, training, etc. in the game this time around? Um, Mentors are one of my secret themes. Surprise. Um, I think that there is something to be said about the idea that a person or a character, anybody, you know, you could have the potential for anything and to be great, but sometimes uh, you need guidance. Sometimes, though, there are also people who have done work already, who are like experts in their fields or who are already like kind of masters of their crafts. And by and you want to guess? You want to guess the others? Go for it. If you want to try, you think you can guess them. I'll tell you if you get any right. Um, can we get a free feed? We do. Maybe get like a free a free tea party. Let's see, free special meeting. Um, the but the idea that you could take that further. There's a lot to do with like legacy. Uh, Space STDs is not a theme of the campaign. that's just that's just something that the players keep trying to ham fist into it. No pun intended. Oh man. And don't accidentally incent those that might be your mentor one. Yes, exactly, exactly. Um, but I also wanted, um, in the last campaign, though there were like figures who were NPCs, who were damn it, there were NPCs who were like, who were adventurers or NPCs who would like give guidance and things like that. There weren't really NPCs who could really fill like that mentor role. Nor were there any who could like it would have been like I'm sure it would have been cool if like Alton could have or if Carnegie could have stood with like Kiana Valeris and stood in her library and learned some like dragon magic from her and stuff like that. But like I really could not do that in that kind of system because then that would just open up a whole bag of worms. So in like a jalopy that's like rigged together and duct taped and like has got tubes and hoses coming through it, I was like, okay, yeah. But like those kinds of things, I feel like it adds even more to the game, more to the characters. To me, mechanics should always reinforce the narrative and should always reinforce that verisimilitude so that there's not like any dissonance. There's nothing like worse than when you're in a game and something suddenly very the cause of that dissonance happens. Like when you're playing Uncharted and Nathan Drake is supposed to be the super chill guy, our beloved hero, but then you realize that like throughout the whole mission he's killed like 700 people, and you're like, damn, is Nathan Drake a good guy? Or like when you're playing a game and it's like, oh, your character's like they love animals and it's all this stuff, and then like the mini game is about them like setting birds on fire or something, and you're like, that's weird. So these mechanics, I feel like they just add more. Ori would like to learn from Petunia, waiting to see if she survives. Yeah, Ori will get a specialty invite and be like, and then everyone will be like, "Hey, where did Ori go? I haven't seen her since she left." But yeah, I've been enjoying that aspect a lot. Dana asks, sing there. You mentioned at the end of the last campaign we could have created a character in the Witch Hunters, which granted no one chose, but also did not realize it was an option. Are there any factions and classes that could be joined that we are not aware of yet? Um, there's no like restriction on like anything you guys want to create. Um, So that's your answer. It could be like, as if you're willing to put in part of your backstory, and we can figure out like that, like as we're going to as well. But if you want to be like, hey, like I want to be a character who like was an operative of the firm, and maybe like I've been like a sleeper cell, and I've been just doing this thing, and then like 2 levels from now, I'm gonna wake up and realize like, oh no, I've been activated. Ugh, start to go or something. That's fine with me. When it comes to like your character's origin and things like that, like uh this is why, like I said, like that there's such a huge range of time of your character potentially existing or being defrosted from the tranquility, or even the need to even be part of the tranquility in the first place. As long as you still have like your debt. The main thing is that you have some reason to be on Canberry and be here and part of the RAQ. Outside of that, we can work whatever else the backstory's in. Um, but hold on a second, my phone. Oh, it is. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna be right back. We'll take a quick five. I'm gonna get some water. I also have to open the door, so I'll be right back, y'all. Ready? There's a reason to put the ending stream instead of the be right back, bud. Okay, we're here. Yeah, it's such a huge time or range for everyone to live. The free jewels cloaks everybody can be from different places in time. Yeah, but even like the length of time that like your history could have been, like you could have been like Oz, like he's had a whole life the past 20 years, you know. So it's really open ended. But on to the next question. Becky asks, "Do you have a prep routine that gets you into a creative headspace?" No, mostly just music. I think I mentioned I've been reading um, the artist's way, and like I do some like journaling and workbooks and stuff like that. But most of the time, like honestly, D&D is like my hyper obsession. I think about it probably way too much. It occupies like so much brain space for me. So a lot of times I'm like almost always like partially in there. Um, Especially because like inspiration happens so many times. I watch like other D&D content. I think the thing that puts me in the most like creative headspace is probably video games. Um, I love video games. They bring me so much joy. I spend a lot of time thinking about why video games make me happy or why they're good or not, what critically makes them good or not. And a lot of times when I see video games and I have a good experience and I'm like, whoa, that was exhilarating. A lot of times I end up thinking like, what was it that made it exhilarating? Was it the creature? Was it the battle? Was it the mechanics? Was it the speed? Was there something that was really good about it, enjoyable about it? Probably after that is movies or anime. Is when I think like, well, that was really cool. Uh, asks the first question I cannot answer, which is what would a one bring us on the current Albion random encounter table? And I cannot answer this question, but it's a good thing. Or like it's like a interesting thing. Um, who do you think? Martin asks, who do you think would be the funniest to roll this one? That I could answer. I think the funniest would be Knock. Knock, be good. Um, Ryan asks, oh, okay, hold on. Question two part. Campaign one, fantasy and magic abundant. Campaign two, sci-fi campaign. Oh wait, sci-fi. Campaign three. Any thoughts yet? Not specifics wanted, just see if you are seeing the edges of it yet. Damn, now I'm almost rooting for the natural one. Yes. Yeah, knock would be the most hilarious. Um, and half a millimeter, the whole page flips out. Um, in terms of campaign three, I actually am seeing the edges of it. I don't have specifics yet, but I think if you want an idea, I posted um he's saying too much. Uh Always looking to, like I say before, campaign five is one big bet. I'll fill you guys in later, but it is what you think. um, um, like I said, to solve problems, to resolve like dissonance, but also to do things that I wasn't able to do before. Um, Explore things that I wasn't able to explore before, or that might interest me. So there are certain aspects that I am starting to see the edge of. That honestly mainly have to do with because of dungeons. Um, Mainly because of my view that like for a game called Dungeons and Dragons, while there are like some small dungeons that like are fun and cool to go into and things like that, for the most part, players don't really like dungeons all too much. Um, at least not as much as you would think for a game called Dungeons and Dragons. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, there's some edges of it that I kind of can see a framework that I'm like, okay, what would I attach to this framework, and um, what would I then want to focus on, and what would the experience be? But I'm kind of feeling something more like as wide and vast as the verse is. I feel like space is something that's often underestimated, and how large and massive it is, and how like we could be on one, like we could spend like an entire campaign on one planet and just focusing on like one little thing happening there. And everywhere we go should be floor to ceiling stone in your so more dungeons, yeah. Um but how like massive the verse is and how big it is, which is why like sometimes where I'm like, it would be very hard for like, this person to be able to find somebody because it's like there are planets, which is available for pre-order. I'm thinking maybe something more personal where you have to eat the monsters to survive, right? Quick tick. So honestly, Delicious in Dungeon. So I started reading the manga for that. I mentioned this before when like it first came out, like almost more than 10 years ago now. And that manga changed the way that I made dungeons, especially to consider more of like the ecosystems, the logic as to like who put this here and why and how things work. But I think part of that is also the coming back to the Lycistrine dungeon and dungeon design in general. Uh, so yeah, I am seeing the edges of it. I don't know just yet, but Eat the Monsters to Survive is one that I'm like always like, "Ah, yes, that would be good." Um, Ryan's next question is: If you trapped, oh, just come, if you trapped Dana, Mark, and I in an airlock, how long do you think it would take us yapping in order to run out of oxygen? If we assume that this is an airlock that is, why is my Spotify opening? Okay. If we assume that this is an airlock that is like the size of a small submarine at the bottom of the ocean, an hour, I think sounds about right. Continuing the Colbert questionnaire, what is the scariest animal? I find most little creatures to be scary. Little bugs, little critters, like tiny guys. Like, uh, you know, I can punch. My general rule is if I can punch it, I'm okay with it. I'm not that scared of it. If I cannot punch it, I am probably scared of it. So like ghosts, can't punch a ghost. Probably scared of it. Uh, Dana says, follow up. Who do you think would take the others out in order to survive longer? Ooh, well, Ryan probably. I don't think. I'm not sure if I don't think Mark has it in him to kill both of you. But I think Ryan could. I think Ryan could say, I need to see my wife. Goodbye, guys." While Mark would be like, guys, I love you guys. I don't think we do, and then Ryan would immediately be strangling him. I think that's how it would go. Once of course, you guys realized that it was life or death. Once you guys were like, oh, this is it. I think Mark would be like, he'd start giving a speech and be like, you know what, guys? Yeah, he'd be like, you know what, guys? I'm just gonna. Oh man, that'd be great. Well, that would be great, but that'd be made for like a great sitcom, like a great little skit. Uh, he's over there crying in the corner. To Mandalorians, what race, class, group, or species from this campaign can we turn into Jawas? I don't know. It depends what you guys decide to do. I think someone had said, um, I think John had stated, making a wish to make it so that Rothians didn't need to eat psychically anymore. And I don't think that would turn them into Jawas, but it definitely would like shake up the status quo a lot. Um, but if not them, then definitely androids for sure. Androids for sure. That's just the sound the moon makes. The moon just sobs all the time. Uh, Dana asks, if you had to pick your least favorite animal, what would it be and why? That's pretty easy. Just a spider. Um, I think it's self-explanatory. It's it's spiders. That's it. Let's see. Dana asked more about why are there no Elvish history books? Um, the elves like their version of history, and they don't need to verify any sources, and they're very protective of their knowledge. The dwarven history books are long and boring, and it's somehow Oz's fault. Um, I don't know why, Mark. If you care to elaborate, but this is just how it feels like the dwarves operate. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but that's just how they are. They take it to me. It always fascinated me, like back when I was a child reading the Bible, and I'd be like, "They bring up propaganda," but I'd always be fascinated at like the parts of the Bible where it's like, and they made this boat, and it was 16 by this, and they brought this and this, and this guy had 72, and I was just like, man, they really had a guy whose job it was to just count all this stuff. So I don't know. Doors feel like they'd be big on. Those are questions, not statements. Oh, okay, okay. Some of these I cannot answer. Like, is Eris really the Oracle of the Void's name? Nor if she is an actual heiress and if Fina will get a will, be in the will. Um, have there been any character choices so far that have genuinely surprised you? I think Mark deciding to come back dead, uh, above table, he was one that surprised me. Of like, okay, you died, but you're gonna come back. But the choice to be like, I'm coming back differently, is such an interesting choice. It has been so fun to explore. Because yeah, Access to Leviticus, yeah, those are the ones for sure. I think that genuinely surprised me. Jan deciding to leave the note. And you guys decide. Oh yeah, you guys decided to kill the mayor. That definitely surprised me. That was definitely one where I was like, because there's so many times where I feel like you guys are a little bit afraid of like either changing the status quo or like affecting too much or like messing something up or something. I guess in some like however you might view that to be. Um, well, but I'm always genuinely surprised when like one of you decides to do something that's like game changing. Like, oh, the mayor's dead now. Wow. Okay. Like, or like, and like the harvester is back. Okay, cool. Like, uh, that's just like so wild. I think those are the most recent ones that come to mind. Why does Talvik hate Fina so? Like she hasn't done anything. Just has experienced Fina died. Yeah, those are surprising. X2. Talvik, maybe not the most rational person, but I think for sure whatever he knows or thinks he knows about the heiress seems to greatly influence his opinion of Fina. So we'll see. Uh, Adam says, I was embarrassingly late into this campaign that I realized the scales everyone was talking about were the kind of things reptiles and fish have in place of skin, or a dragon in this case, and not some magical weighing scales like the scales of justice. Can we have some magical weighing scales enter the campaign as really important objects later, just so everyone else gets confused too? The first time I saw the message that someone said, wait, are these not scales like for weights? I immediately added those into the campaign. um, if Elvis takes over, he kills Eli Elvis, becomes forever mayor. Oh my goodness. But yes, definitely magical scales incoming for sure. It's cool. It's the NTSB's rating for the flying car versus the Land Runner. Hmm, figure out what those words mean. National Transportation Safety Board ratings. Safety ratings. Interesting. Okay. So I would say, so they give. Okay. Overall ratings, force, I think. Yeah. You know, you guys should survive. I think that's the best estimation I give you. Elvis would be a good mayor. Town becomes a big bar. Oh, they rate the cars. Yes, yes. Yeah, Elvis for mayor. When? Maybe that should be like the next big focus. Is there a quest on the quest board that you are surprised we haven't tackled yet? Let me look at the quest board. See if there's anything. I think so. Mhm. So you guys have been sorry for that. So been pretty good at tackling like a lot of the earlier ones. You know, we're only in like 137. Most of the earlier quests have been completed. So I'm surprised you guys haven't tackled yet. Maybe except for I think that's it. Maybe the bag and run, but I also get why you wouldn't want to do that one. That one's definitely more like a that's it's clear the negatives and cons of that. Um, is there a quest on the board you're really looking forward to us doing? Yes, the dragon. At last, the dragon. That is the quest that I am most interested uh in doing because if I'm right, it might be the end of Act One. We'll see. Could be a big change. I'm just the mace job. I swear, it's scheduled. Say flying is safer. A lot depends on the pilot. A lot depends on the pilot. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's going to be fun. Let's see. Ask if I've ever DM'd a session sans pants. No, I don't have to because I always wear shorts. I've always been a basketball shorts kind of guy, and this job allows me to continue doing that. Uh, with honestly, that was like the biggest, my biggest hatred for like corporate life was like how you just could not wear pants, and it just infuriated me. When I was like, this is nonsense. I mean, where you couldn't wear shorts. I was like, this is nonsense. There are good looking shorts you can wear. But yeah, I get hot very easily. So it is funny because almost all my wardrobe has now just degraded to t-shirts and basketball shorts. So that's it. And right now I am wearing t-shirts and basketball shorts. um, let's see. Mark also asks. I'll put this as one question. Hold on, what is this song? He asks about the eyes. Now I assume that this is from regarding last campaign and what I will call my uh, obsession with eyeballs. um, it was mainly a theme. Um, in my mind, Ricardo was in a full tuxedo every week. The so the eyeballs, there's like so many, there's so much like media and literature, but especially in anime, things that have to do with eyes. Special eyes, having like some kind of special perception, special sight. Um Man, you said it before I could finish typing. uh So it was a secret theme because if you recall, the last campaign had a lot to do with the Outsiders, which represented the Eldritch horror aspect of the campaign. A lot of Eldritch horror has to do with like insight and perception and like your ability to see things. If you recall that those things coming up a lot in the campaign, um but not just in the sense of like what you see physically with your eyeballs, but also like what you can see with your mind's eye, but also like the perception of things, like what is real, what is reality. That's also a theme that was kind of played with a lot in the campaign, which is kind of like how fascistic governments typically work. And which is why like a lot of the times the empire didn't care as much about like the effects of like what they were doing, but more about like the optics. The optics were very important. Of like, they needed permission, even though they had all the power they still had. You still need express permission from the people in order to engage in certain atrocities and things like that. So if they have the excuse of like these monsters are here, then based on appearances they can do that. So eyes were already like a big theme. In addition, I already admitted that the shadows were a theme for this campaign. um, have you picked a new body part for this campaign? Has Oz's finger washed off yet? Oz's finger has not washed off yet, and I actually have picked a new body part for this campaign. But yeah, so that's mainly where like the whole eye thing came from, because so much of it is like about expanding your vision, expanding your sight, gaining more insight. In the game Bloodborne, a big mechanic is gaining more insight. They would literally, people would try to create eyes on their brains so that their brains could see more. But in a lot of Eldritch horror things, like sight is important. So, but then also to an anime like Naruto's got a bunch of eye stuff. There's a bunch of anime games and video games and stuff like that. Things where it's like, oh, the person with the special eyes or the special eye. So I figured like that was also fun to play with too. But especially with with Grim, his eye giving him true sight, and it also true sight having negative effect. That was in part of that, of the fact that like the truth, being able to see the truth, your mind needs to be able to withstand and comprehend that. Because as much as like people say like, you know, truth can set you free, some people cannot handle the truth. There are many people who prefer to live in a delusion or just the making ups of like a life or a reality, as that's much more preferred and more comfortable than the truth. So to answer your question, yeah, eyes were a big theme. I did not get poked in the eye a lot as a child. My parents always swore that I would. But I am afraid that I'm losing my vision. That's one of my biggest fears. um, what is under the eyelids here? I think I've answered the eye question. Uh, it- um, why am I prejudiced against dwarves and their ability to see in magical darkness? I'm not prejudiced against dwarves, nor have I ever been. You know, it's friends. Just kidding. The dwarves are great. Especially love the dwarves of this verse. You'll win campaign 3 then. Campaign 3 is all about makeup. um so asks, are the conspiracy and the anti-dwarf conspiracy really just one conspiracy, like all cults are one cult? Are the cults part of the conspiracy? Wait, Steve. Not Steve. Steve is fine. Uh, but the bird thing is hilarious. Um, I have no other comment than that. uh, so asks, what is your favorite go-to um, during mission snack and drink? I mainly drink water, just because water's so good for you and people don't drink enough water. Um, I've recently started drinking coffee again, which has like I've been trying to get like the right balance. Before I was like a complete coffee fiend, and then I quit cold turkey, and that was really good for my sleep schedule. But I find now I'm having a little bit of coffee, and it gives me just the right like push to be like, well, I can focus a little bit, you know. So theme gets to birds is not a theme of this campaign, unfortunately. It just is a happy coincidence that I find hilarious. Three, child surprises. Not quite. I wouldn't say that that counts. Child surprises. Um, but I do like snacks that are like salty chips and things like that. I've recently started eating sunflower seeds, which has been really well, not like too much during sessions because they're very hard to eat at the same time while you're playing. But like just as a snack, I find that like just having the chewing, kind of like even when I'm working, like kind of eases me. And then when I'm typing things and stuff. So sunflower seeds has been my go-to snack. But really, any salty things, I love like pretzels and peanut butter. Um, yeah, those are great. Sunflower seeds are the bomb. Yeah. Um, it's one of those things too that I was like, I used to love these as a kid, and then one day I just stopped eating them, and I forgot about them. um, Mark says this is a real question from my wife who has seen your TikTok videos and is sitting next to me. What is your skincare routine? How do I make my husband's face look as good as yours? That is hilarious. Thank you um, for the compliment. I think it's mostly just genes. My mom looks really young. Even up until like high school, people were like, "Is this your sister?" And I'm like, "No, it's my mom." Um, Even to this point, she does not look like she's like nearing 60, so it's pretty funny. But in terms of skincare, I do almost nothing except I do use dry body oil. I don't really like lotion. Don't like the feeling of it. It just is icky on my skin. But dry body oil, I find that my skin absorbs it. It feels really good. My skin actually gets moisturized, and yeah, that's about the extent as I go to for my skincare routine. Although about once a month, because I do have a mohawk and needs to be like sort of maintained. I can't do it all myself because I like it takes me like 3 hours in the mirror trying to do it. But I do get a haircut, and when I do get a haircut, my barber does put this like moisturizing gel on me and puts like a hot towel and gives me like a face massage thing while he cuts my hair. It's wild. Uh, I've never had this before this guy, but it's great. But I don't think that's the thing that's helping. So, uh, it's a Fizz's grandfather's dagger, taken after his illegal arrest and imprisonment. Admiral Bridges took Fizz's grandfather's dagger and kept it. That was one of his like trophies. So that is where that is. um, when where did I throw all your shit when you threw us in the hole? The rest of it, I imagine, was confiscated by like the government, and they were like, "All right, we can use these things," you know. Um, but yeah, we talked to skincare. Let's see. Ryan says, "While I understand the narrative convenience of limiting access to historical knowledge by limiting the lifespans of all races to around 100 years, I'm curious why or how this occurred, or how or why this occurred in Tyr. I know you referenced exposure to dark matter drives as a reason in the verse. Was there ever an opportunity to have elves and dwarven lifespans in Tyr that we missed?" Um, so that is oh now my email's open. That's not good. This was a side effect of the fact that none of you guys were actually um created from elves that like came from over time. Uh, oh, I'm reading the comments now. They're very on it. Raggy, geez, you will never see the end of the goat. Fuck your comments now. I have redemption arc in Elysium. Oh my god. Um, so on Tyr, none of the people like were born there. Like none of the elves and dwarves or anybody were born there. They're all aliens. But more than that, you're all clones. The world that you guys came from was one that was very much like the Matrix, where you were all like clones who were put into your little pods, and then they would just keep you there until your brains were ready so that they could eat them. So all of you were clones essentially. And then when the uh, when the gods came, they freed the clones and took them on the ship and brought them to this planet. So my head can't like I guess my narrative sense for why it is that you guys were all like that is because none of you actually were like elves or original dwarves who lived those long lifespans in the first place. You were all just bodies that they just needed so that they could like put you there, and they just needed you to live long enough for you to reach maturity and have your brains harvested, and that's just way easier. Um, what the heck? Oh, Nightbot has just spam Dina. I'm sorry, Dina. Um, Control yourself or you'll be asked to leave. So yeah, that's my reasoning for it, which is that like everybody was like aliens and clones first, so that's why. Um, Dana also asks, is there a limit to purchasing rare items in the shop with the 3 item upgrade? No, you can purchase any 3 items. That is the upgrade that you guys got. You've earned it. So, any 3 rare items, if you want to purchase them at that price, you can. Um, if you can. Let's see. You ever? AB asks, have you ever let something slip in a session, pre, during, or post, that reveals something to the players about the world that they don't know yet? If no, how do you avoid it without going insane? If yes, were you surprised when we didn't notice? Um, again, I don't think so because most of the time I want you guys to have enough information to piece things together and make informed decisions about the world, but I also don't want this information just be plopped in front of you and you're like, blah, here we go. So a lot of times like you guys are slowly like getting information and putting pieces together. I think sometimes I'm surprised at how quickly you guys are able to piece things together and make connections to things. um like with Talvik and him saying like, oh, I can we can do the thing with the scales, and you guys like kind of piecing things together about the Karinga and stuff like that. um yeah, so sometimes I'm surprised like, oh, you guys are getting it, cool. Because sometimes I'm never sure, I'm like, is this gonna work? I don't know. um I think in the last campaign I think I was more like, oh man, I have not noticed this yet, okay, cool. But I think that's also because there were so many threads in the last one that it was like I was more like unclear as to like which things could be followed or should be followed, and choices just had to be made. So, um, yeah. JB asks, where is all the food going that Mr. T eats? Really? Do we want to know? We don't want to know. How many people have Doctor A and Ambulance helped in Canterbury so far? And what do the different factions think? I'm assuming think of Ambulance and Doctor A. They've helped a good amount of people so far, especially people who just need like just routine care or like had injuries and things like that, minor infections and things that could be very easily remedied by a quick doctor visit. But I think so far everything's pretty positive. As long as nothing goes wrong and Doctor Acula never goes on some kind of crazy rampage or something and starts attacking people. So, anyways, I think that's all the questions we've got. It's awesome. 50. Minute ones you guys think of? Come on. These have been great questions, y'all. Very thought provoking. So far, nobody's guessed any other uh, themes. Any of the secret themes. Child surprises was not one of them. Yeah. Don't have any other questions. I just had to on timeout Dana because the Nightbot timed her out for spanning caps. Is there a question you wish we'd asked? I don't think there's a specific question. You guys ask such great questions. Uh, I think you guys. That's it. Thank you guys for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed these questions, these answers, and having your curiosities satisfied. And I get team data time purposes. um, so a lot of give on view turn into a video so that uh, leave it.